When I see you dancing, I'm like, hola, 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 hola. With your move fancy, make me wanna hola, 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 hola. I got your attention, spending that moolah, 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 moolah. I'm a drop popping, pocket, swola, 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 swola.
You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristadoulou.
Oh, welcome back, everybody, to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Haristadoulou. Welcome. It is it is Thursday, May 13th, 2021. Very slow news week, basically. There's not a ton going on throughout the entire NFL right now. I mean, we had schedule release yesterday, which was probably the biggest thing that we had going on. Outside of that, though, very, very slow right now. We're going to go deep dive into the NFL schedule release, though, talk about a lot of what we learned from the schedule, who's playing when, and throughout the entire season. There's a couple of games I've highlighted that I'm really excited for, and seeing the NFL's season opener is going to be the Dallas Cowboys at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Super Bowl champions, going up against Dallas, America's team. That's going to be a ratings cow. If I was to look at that in any shape or form, it's going to be a ratings cow. So we'll just dive headfirst into everything. The first thing I'm going to fire to you guys right now is going to be the question of the day. And it's a pretty straightforward, simple one regarding the schedule release from yesterday. What is your favorite matchup that you are looking forward to going into this season? There is a number of matchups that you can really highlight and look at and think, man, this is going to be a good game. I'm very curious to hear what you all think about, so fire it down in the comments section below. Let me know what you guys think as far as favorite game that you are hoping to watch later on this season, be it in week 1, week 13, whatever it may be, really, if I'm being completely honest with you guys. But so first things first, let's just talk about kind of week 1, what we're looking at the very first week of the season. Obviously, the headliner, Buccaneers taking on the Cowboys, Thursday night football to open up the season. That will be on the 9th of September, 8:20 p.m. I think this is going to be, it should be a good game for the most part. Dallas is really committed to working on their defense throughout this offseason, especially with the draft, a very defensively heavy draft that they went through. So, I mean, I kind of have some slightly higher expectations than I had pre-draft as far as how their defense is going to go. I'm really hoping that some of these players like Jabril Cox and Micah Parsons make a really big improvement on that defense. But I think overall it should be a good game. I have a feeling it's going to go into Tampa Bay's favor, though. You know, if you watch that Tampa Bay team, especially after their Week 12 bye, when they really started getting things clicking and that offense started cooking, I mean, that team just looked so good, so strong, and did not lose a single game from that point onward after taking that loss to the Chiefs. So I have a strong feeling that it's going to be in favor of the Buccaneers. I expect that. I don't want to say it's going to be close or not, because you don't really know how Dak Prescott's going to be post-injury, especially when it comes to anything with the legs. You know, so it takes a little bit to get past like that mental aspect of, okay, I can use this leg in full game speed. You know, that's something that a lot of players have talked about as like something that's kind of tough to get over. But I have a feeling it's going to be going Bucs. I'm not going to predict a score because I literally have no idea what it's going to be. I'm assuming the Buccaneers will probably put up like 24 to 31 points at some point, and the offense for Dallas is honestly a complete mystery. So outside of that, though, Bears and Rams are going to be the first Sunday night football game of the year. That's pretty sweet. I think Bears and Rams should be a solid game. You know, we don't really know whether Justin Fields is going to be the starter week 1. That obviously remains to be seen based off of how, you know, I don't even know how OTAs and everything are working right now, considering how much the NFLPA is butting heads and stuff like that. But, he may or may not be the week 1 starter. I'm hoping that he's going to be the week 1 starter because I think it elevates that game and makes it even more exciting. So I think Bears and Rams, obviously Matthew Stafford going to LA, making his debut Sunday night football in a Rams uniform. That's very exciting. You know, he's going to get an opportunity to, you know, being on the Detroit Lions, I feel like he didn't have the spotlight shown on him as much. And so when I talk to other people who did not watch Matthew Stafford the way I got to like watch him, because I've been a very big fan of Stafford since he came in the league, some people don't really understand just how good he can actually be. And he's going to get an opportunity, you know, first week of the year to really put that all on display in what should be a high-powered Rams offense, or is at least what some people are expecting to be a high-powered Rams offense. I would be kind of shocked if this didn't really go the Rams way. I have a feeling that the Rams, you know, they're really good, really strong team, and I expect a lot from them. going through this season. This is they made a playoff run last year with Jared Goff, and I feel like Matthew Stafford's a big upgrade for the team, and I expect them to go even further with Matthew Stafford at the helm. Another game, Monday Night Football. This one, I don't really have so much of an interest in. It's Ravens and Raiders. I'm not super high on the Raiders this year, so obviously a Monday Night Football game. It's going to be at 8:39. I think it's 8:20 or something like that is when it's actually going to be. So one of those later night games on a Monday night, I don't like that. I've never been a big fan of the super late Monday night games because it's in the middle of the week, or not in the middle of the week, but it's weekday, and it's just really weird, especially if you're somebody who gets up for work early. At this point in my life with the job that I do, I'm usually waking up around 5:30 for work. So, a game that runs to about midnight is not ideal for me. So depending on what I'm doing with my life at that point in time, I don't really know if I'll be watching that game. But there's a few other week one notable matchups that I want to make mention of here. So the Browns and Chiefs, this is going to be an AFC divisional rematch. This should be a really good game. This is a game that I'm really excited for. The Browns, very, very tight game. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes went down with an injury going through that game, and it kind of, flipped the script a little bit into the Browns' favor, but ultimately, the Chiefs were able to hang on for the win. The Browns have done a really good job retooling their team, and honestly, in my opinion, have made their team even better than it was last year. So I think that, they're trending upward again going into this season. They look like a really strong AFC contender, and I'm really excited to see how they look, especially getting Odell Beckham back. Baker Mayfield in the same system again for a whole nother offseason. The way you can kind of spell it out, it should be good as far as, progression for Baker Mayfield, and this offense should only look better getting somebody like Odell Beckham back as well. So that's a really good game. Steelers at Bills is another one I'm pretty excited for. Ben Roethlisberger's back for at least one more year in Pittsburgh, and then you got the Bills, obviously Josh Allen, who has at this point, I think, solidified himself as a franchise player over in Buffalo. So that should be a really good game as well. I expect that to be a more high-scoring offensive affair, if anything. And then another one that's not necessarily huge probably on people's radars, but I still have some interest in, is going to be Sam Darnold taking on the Jets. So week one, the Panthers are going up against New York, and that'll be interesting to see as he gets to take on his former team. And I'm assuming we will see the number 2 overall draft pick, Zach Wilson, starting for New York. So that'll be a nice little matchup as well, kind of like a revenge game for Sam Darnold, so to speak. And I don't even know if you can really call it that, because the parting of Sam Darnold from New York was a very, it seemed like an amicable one, and it seemed like something that both sides kind of wanted. So I wouldn't expect it to really be any sort of grudge match type deal. I think this is going to be just Sam Darnold getting to take on his former team and, being able to prove that, I wasn't necessarily the entire problem over here in New York. On top of that, some other games that I have noteworthy that I'm going to just talk about with you guys here. There's a handful of games. I was going through the entire schedule, and there is just a litany of games, especially early in the year. And then as you get more towards the back half of the season, I think the middle of the season kind of lacks, not top tier games, more so I want to say some of the games can be really good depending on how some of these teams do, but based off of paper and what we have from last year, I kind of built this whole games I've circled as ones I want to try and watch if I have the opportunity to. Week number 2, we get Chiefs versus Ravens. I mean, that's kind of been, Lamar Jackson versus Patrick Mahomes, 2 former MVPs going after it, 2 high-powered offenses. Obviously, I think that's going to be a great game to watch. Week number 3, this is one that should be kind of like a playoffs preview if all goes well for both teams involved. The Buccaneers are going to be at LA Rams. That should be a really good game. That's going to be the first really big test for Matthew Stafford, in my opinion. He's going up against Tom Brady and that Super Bowl defending champion team. That should be something that'll be really interesting to keep an eye on and see how that game plays out. What better opportunity to really show your stuff in, prime light underneath, the big lights there against Tampa Bay and Tom Brady. I mean, that you can't really ask for much else when you're going up against the Buccaneers. Going into week 4, everyone's already been talking about this, and who knows whether it's going to be Cam Newton or Mac Jones starting, but the Buccaneers are going to be at New England. That's obviously Tom Brady's homecoming, and based off of everything that I've been reading, it sounds like there's a strong possibility that Tom Brady could be breaking the passing yard record. He's just under 1,200 yards away from the record, and the way the statistics are working out, people are calling it as most likely going to be Tom Brady's opportunity to break the passing record. If I think he averaged like roughly 289 yards a game last year. So the math done out is roughly like week 4 of when he should break the record, if that all kind of falls into place. So that'll be definitely an interesting game to keep an eye on. And then from there, Rams at Seahawks Thursday Night Football. And I also have Colts and Ravens on Monday Night Football week 5. You got a lot of playoff teams here just going head to head. Rams, Seahawks will be really interesting to watch. Rams versus anyone, really. With the addition of Matthew Stafford, this really puts the Rams in such a strong position to be such a really good team. Other than that, though, the Colts and the Ravens. This is one of those. This is me as a Colts fan. I really like seeing the Colts in a primetime opportunity. I feel like they haven't had as many in the last few years. So getting to see the Colts in primetime, whether it's Monday night, Sunday night, Thursday, I'm all for it. But Colts Ravens week 5, Lamar Jackson going to be, putting up, I'm hoping not a bunch of big numbers, but I'm assuming, prime time, he's going to show up. Lamar Jackson's been impressive so far throughout the year, but that's definitely something I'm looking forward to as well. Stephen Land in the comment section. Hey man, awesome channel. I'd say the best game to keep an eye on week 1 is Browns Chiefs rematch of the divisional, Bills Steelers, Cards Titans, and Bears Rams. And great job with the streams. I appreciate that, man. I appreciate the support. I'm having a blast doing this, so I'm glad that you're enjoying the content. I'm definitely excited for that Browns Chiefs game week 1. I think, we kind of got robbed of like the true ending of that divisional game when Patrick Mahomes went out of it. It obviously kind of made it a little bit more exciting because the Browns kind of stormed back at the end and just kind of came up short. That's definitely a game I have pegged that I'm keeping an eye on. I most definitely want to sit down and watch, see how that plays out. Going into week 7, 2 games that I have circled here, Lions and Rams. This will be obviously Matthew Stafford's opportunity to go right after his former team. Jared Goff is probably going to be the starting quarterback coming into that game unless he's having an absolutely abysmal season. So obviously Matthew Stafford getting his shot at his old team. And then another one for me as a Colts fan, Colts versus 49ers, Sunday Night Football week 7. That's a big one as well for me. I'm assuming that by week 7, I don't know if Trey Lance will be starting or not. I mean, for all we know, Trey Lance could end up starting week 1. I feel like the way the 49ers are going to try to play it out is maybe hold off Trey Lance for a little bit. I don't know if they'll commit to a whole year. It's really going to come down to how good Jimmy Garoppolo is ultimately. But boy, would I be intrigued in seeing Trey Lance leading the 49ers come like that midpoint of the season and see how that plays out. So Trey Lance up against the 49ers, I'd be all for seeing something like that. Packers and Chiefs in week 9, obviously 2 storied franchises in the league. If Aaron Rodgers is still in Green Bay, that should obviously be a big matchup between this past year's MVP and the MVP from the 2 years prior before that. That'll obviously be, I'm assuming, a shootout and kind of like a Super Bowl matchup we could have possibly seen this past year had the Green Bay Packers been able to rout the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's a big one I have circled. Seahawks Packers in week 10 should be a solid one as well. Obviously, Rodgers, Russell Wilson, 2 quarterbacks that have kind of voiced that, well, obviously Aaron Rodgers more so than anything, but Russell Wilson early in the offseason voicing their displeasures with their team. Russell Wilson obviously has sorted his things out at this point, and it sounds like they're good to go for at least this next season here. Should Aaron Rodgers still be in Green Bay, I have that one circled as a big one for week 10. Colts and Bills, week 11, that's a wild card rematch. I'm all for that one. Rams at Packers, and then also Bucks at Colts in week 12. So you got Tom Brady renewing his, not really much of a rivalry anymore, but what was a massive rivalry for him when he was in New England going up against Indianapolis and the Peyton Manning-led Colts back in the day. And then also the Rams at Packers, assuming everything is going well for Rams and Packers based off of how they played last year, and if Aaron Rodgers is still in Green Bay, that should be a fantastic matchup to watch as well. Rams will potentially have the offense to actually match the firepower of Green Bay, as they did not have going through this past divisional round in the 2020 season. So something I have circled there. Bills at Bucks week 14. Obviously, Josh Allen, young upstart. The Bills have been, the uprising team in the AFC for the last couple of years, getting better and better and better. Now, Josh Allen gets an opportunity to go head-to-head with Tom Brady. That was, a potential Super Bowl matchup we didn't get to see, obviously, with the Chiefs beating the Bills in the AFC Championship. Then I got Packers and Ravens and Patriots and Colts in week 15. I have the Patriots-Colts one circled more so because, obviously, Colts fan, love to see them play the Patriots. But also, at this point, I'm expecting to see Carson Wentz going head-to-head against Mac Jones. I don't think that Cam Newton is going to be the quarterback the entirety of this year. So at this point, I expect Mac Jones playing the quarterback position for New England, and I would love to see that matchup there and see how Mac Jones fares against our defense. And then Packers-Ravens, obviously the last two MVPs of the league going head-to-head. Another interesting matchup should Aaron Rodgers stay in Green Bay. Then we have Christmas Day, the Browns and Packers and Colts and Cardinals. I have both of these circled just because I can't remember if there was a game on Christmas last year, and I don't know if the NFL's done games on Christmas before. I can't remember if they had one last year or not, but I'm excited to see there's games on Christmas Day. I know basketball's been really big on Christmas, and that's not something that I really watch. I'm not a big basketball person, so seeing the NFL kind of buy in on that, I'm all for. Wicked excited to see that. Then going into Week 16, we have the Steelers and Chiefs. Should be at this point in the season, if all is going well for both teams, both playoff teams last year, probably playoff implications going into this one. Rams and Ravens, Week 17, two, I'm assuming at this point, playoff contenders if all goes well for them. And then Week 18 is basically the divisional finals of the NFL. It seems to be how it's been going the last handful of years. The NFL keeps scheduling all division rivals going up head-to-head that final week of the year because, you sometimes get to a point where, I don't know, teams are playing for that last, number one spot in whatever division it may be. The NFC East came down to literally the last week there, and a lot of people were saying that this is how the Giants hate the Eagles because the Giants kept the Eagles out of the playoffs, things like that. So obviously Week 18 is always a, deciding factor for the NFL and seeing who makes it to the playoffs and who doesn't make it to the playoffs, especially those tight-knit divisions there. So really exciting schedule. There's a ton of games. I mean, I really only had if I'm looking at the list here, there's only 2, maybe 3 weeks where I didn't really look at the entire week and say, okay, there's not really a game on here that is can't miss in my opinion. But I mean, every single week at least has something that appears to be noteworthy in a game that I think is worth watching, at least on paper from where we stand right now. There's obviously a strong possibility that, some of these games are not important at all, and what I've circled will literally mean nothing by the time that week rolls around. But just based off what we're looking at, the NFL did a really good job spreading out some really big games. They got a couple of weekends that have some really good matchups that are doubled up that same weekend. So a lot of must-watch football going into this 18-week season. I'm really excited to see how everything rolls out. Now, outside of the schedule release, there is other news that we have to talk about today. And if you notice me looking out to the right a lot, I realized going into the show here, literally too late before I could do anything, I totally forgot to print out my script for today's show. So Bridgewater came out and he kind of took aim at the Carolina Panthers and their practice. This was something that I was kind of shocked about. I did not expect to hear anything like this coming out of Bridgewater because he's, from at least what I've seen, fairly quiet throughout his entire career. And this is somebody, coming off a crazy injury, and he's trying to fight his way back into the league. He looked really good on the Saints, not so good on the Panthers. I have seen him get flack for his performance through the season this past year, and I don't really want to throw blame at Teddy Bridgewater for anything because the Panthers were, I don't know. I don't want to say particularly because there was faults on both sides. There's some things where I look at the Panthers and I go, what the heck's going on here? And there are other times where, Bridgewater was missing a wide open receiver 5 yards out from the end zone. So it's kind of like a hit or miss type thing. But, I think that it just wasn't really the right fit ultimately. But Bridgewater came out. He kind of called into question the way they were practicing. During an appearance on All Things Covered podcast on Wednesday, Bridgewater had this to say, and it's a direct quote from what I was reading. He said specifically, "I'll just say this. For Joe Brady's growth, they'll have to practice different things in different ways. One of the things we didn't do much of when I was there, we didn't practice 2-minute drills. We didn't practice red zone. We didn't practice on Fridays, but you walk through the red zone stuff. And then Saturday you came out and practiced red zone, but you only got 15 live reps." Now, from what I've gathered, this is, I guess this is not the norm. From what I was reading, some places were saying that typically it's Friday is the drills and everything like that. And it's not actually Saturdays. So I don't know. I don't necessarily know the ins and outs of how the league operates with their last few days of the week. But as far as what Coach Matt Rule had to say about this in response to the whole thing. He was pretty subtle about it. He didn't take any shots at Bridgewater or anything like that. He honestly sounded a little bit more disappointed than anything. He came out and said later on that day, he's happy with how the team handles the lead up to his game. So it doesn't sound like he's, I don't know. He's not like worried about anything that Teddy Bridgewater had to say, I guess. But he did say, we have a process. We have a practice schedule. I think we're pretty organized. We try to address all the situations. I'm not going to delve into specifics about our process. I really feel good about the way we practice. And then Rule did go on to say, he expected Bridgewater to have tremendous success, quote unquote. I don't know if that was kind of like his tongue-in-cheek remark that he wanted to shoot over at Bridgewater, but he did say he expects him to have tremendous success with with Denver. And then he went on to say, I like who he is. I like who he is as a football player. I like who he is as a leader. I don't have anything negative to say. So he kind of took the high road on the criticism. He didn't really, go after Bridgewater and any of his play and things like that. I know that some Panthers fans are not happy with how that was handled. So, I don't know. I'm not really sure where the whole shot was coming from out of Bridgewater. I don't know if that's him trying to like save his stock or anything like that. I mean, you're not on the team anymore, so I don't see what use it is in slandering the team in any way, but really interesting that kind of came out because like I said, Bridgewater is not somebody that's like been in the media a lot saying anything. He's been a pretty quiet guy since he's been in the league. And so I was a little bit shocked when I saw something like this came out, and it almost sounds like Matt Rule was kind of like shocked at the whole situation as well. But yeah, that's pretty much on everything on the Teddy Bridgewater issue. Now, something else that came up, the Las Vegas Raiders. This is something that I'm really excited about and I think is really, really cool. So the Las Vegas Raiders, if you see these pictures that I have over on the left-hand side here, announced that they're basically bringing like a nightclub / like DJ thing that they're going to be going on here. This is wicked, wicked cool if you ask me. So they're bringing a live DJ and club experience to Allegiant Stadium. Clubs will be the length of the club will be the length of the end zone, featuring 42 TVs, a 9 by 30 foot LED screen, 2 DJ booths, and a 45,000 watt sound system, and will be nearly 11,000 square feet in space. That is enormous. Now, this is something that's obviously far and wide different from what, the Raiders have been known for. Back when they were in Oakland, they had the whole black hole thing that they were doing over there. Very interesting what they were doing, or what they are planning on doing here. This is something that I don't think you've ever seen in any shape or capacity in any NFL stadium. If you look at the images here, I don't know if they brought people in to take pictures or these are just generated people. I'm assuming not, because they look like real people that just came in to take pictures. But just judging by the way it looks, it's literally right behind the end zone. The DJ's right there playing music. They have like the little booths where you can have a handful of people sitting in. There's also like standing areas as well. On top of that, a handful of other things that they have. There's going to be DJs from Wynn's like legendary lineup is what they called it. I don't know how legendary they actually are. I'd have to look into the actual lineup of DJs they have. But their legendary lineup of DJs, they have a premium bottle service, a dedicated entrance from the outside of the stadium that goes directly into the club. So if that's like what you're doing for the day, you don't have to go through the main entrance. It's like its own dedicated area that you can get yourself into. There's 29 booths altogether, and they got 4 bars lined up in there. So it looks like Las Vegas is really trying to just like take what they're doing over there and bring it to the next level. I think it's really cool. I'm all for it. I'm a big live music person. I've done music festivals in my past, gone to concerts, things like that. So seeing, a team like the Las Vegas Raiders, especially with like the area that they're in, when you go to Vegas, you're there for a party, you're there for a good time. So they're trying to bring like I guess they're trying to bring some sort of like party atmosphere to the whole thing. And I really like what they're looking at doing. Stephen Land here with another comment says, there were some Christmas games held before. I'm sure you're happy to have the Colts on Christmas. Also nice that they will be awesome to see on TV. Definitely. I'm all for the Christmas games. I think they've been doing Christmas games the last like year or two. I'm going to be honest. I was falling out of the NFL a little bit before I started doing my podcast. So I can't remember off the top of my head if there were Christmas games or not, but I'm all for it. I like the games on the holidays. So long as it's not something that's like upsetting the players. I don't know if everyone's thrilled to be playing on Christmas or not, but hopefully it is, something that, it is working out well for the teams, whether they're getting like some sort of incentives for playing on those holidays, but I'm all for it. But again, I'm huge on what they're doing over there at the Raiders Stadium there. Allegiant Stadium sounds like it's going to be a party. That's something I am all for. And, this is something that I think other teams are going to go to and adopt, because it sounds like presentation is something that teams are really starting to look at, and they're really trying to think outside the box. And what the Raiders are doing is probably one of the most outside of the box things I've ever seen. And the fact that they're literally taking up the whole entire end zone has got to be one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I like the whole idea of it. I'm genuinely curious how much something like that is going to cost, because it's probably going to be a lot of money, because you're essentially going to a high-end club that is at a football game. Live music, I mean, it's probably absurd to get yourself a booth for a handful of people there, but that's definitely something that down the road, if I can pull together enough people and enough money for that, that is an experience I'm trying to go. I hope that it would be sweet if the Indianapolis Colts at some point are playing the Raiders at Raiders home in the next handful of years. That's something I'm 100% trying to get myself into. But that's pretty much all the news that I've gathered. There's really not a ton going on as far as news. Again, slow time in the year. But with that, what I'm going to do next is we're going to be doing a Giants draft grade. So for any Giants fans out there, you guys are in for a treat. I'm actually a really big fan of what the New York Giants did in this draft. I have a lot put together to talk about for you guys. So we'll dive into the thick of things. The New York Giants. First off, we'll start with the team needs, kind of what they were looking at and what they needed to go after heading into this draft. Their team needs being offensive line, edge, cornerback, and wide receiver. So those are the big main four that I picked out myself personally. And when I was doing my research around, everyone seemed to kind of agree that's where they were really looking at. As far as the actual picks that they made, so in round number 1, pick number 20, Kadarius Toney, wide receiver out of Florida. If I was to grade this pick alone, this is an A+. Kadarius Toney is somebody who is a legitimate athlete, has so much run after the catch ability. He's fantastic. Great acceleration. He's only had 3 career drops out of I think it's 126 targets that went in his direction. So talk about rock solid hands. The only real things that were knocks to him was the injury history that he had. His top speed didn't match how quick of a burst he has. He's somebody that can just hit his top speed very quickly, but is not as fast as some people would expect him to be. And his route running needs to be worked on, which quite honestly, I mean, there's not ever really a ton of wide receivers that come out of the college ranks that are legitimate, fully fleshed out route runners. That very rarely happens. So when you look at it, as long as the injury history is just that, history, and he's able to polish up on his route running, learning behind, somebody like Kenny Galladay or, somebody like, I don't know, Sterling Shepard's over on that team. If he's learning from anybody that's on that team there, taking his notes and learning, following behind anyone there, this is somebody that I think is going to be a legitimate top threat for the Giants. I expect him to produce early. This offseason is going to be really big for him, putting in the time, learning the playbook, and also learning all the routes they're going to be having him run. But Kadarius Toney, man, at this spot, number 20, I think was a fantastic pick for the Giants. Now, going into round number 2, Azeez Ojulari. Again, if I was to grade this pick on its own, A+. Going right after the literal, when I was talking about draft breakdowns, I talked about the Giants. This was one of the top things I talked about. They needed to work on the edge rusher, and they got literally one of the best edge rushers in Azeez Ojulari. 15 sacks and 55 hurries in 2 years. The sacks might be a little bit low for some people's taste, but the 55 hurries, chasing after the quarterback, forcing them to move out of the pocket, disrupting their, just essentially disrupting the quarterback. That is what you look for in somebody that is a premier edge rusher. Even if they're not getting the sacks, they're disrupting the pocket. They're forcing the quarterback to move around, making him uncomfortable, and that's exactly what you want. He has really good hands, so he's really good at fighting off blocks, and he turns the edge really quickly. He's one of those guys that, really gets around the corner and gets around it fast. The only real knock is that, his production wasn't more than just this 1 year. At least his top tier production wasn't more than this 1 year, so was he a one-hit wonder? I mean, obviously we won't find out until the season rolls through and he plays a year or two with his career, but based off of just production alone within his last season. And he still looked pretty good the year prior as well. He wasn't as good as he was this year, but he still looked pretty solid. This is, again, another fantastic pick, going after a need and getting a top-tier talent in the second round. The Giants almost benefited from like the run of offensive players that we saw going in round one, and it really worked out in their favor to be able to land Azeez Ojulari so late in the second round there. I'm really surprised he made it that far to them, and they really lucked out getting him at number 50. In round number 3, pick 71, they went after cornerback. Again, another team need. Cornerback from Central Florida. He's bigger. He can play the box, kind of like that safety box position that, is kind of like morphed into like a hybrid linebacker safety type role. He's really good at identifying routes. His play kind of fell off a little bit from 2020 compared to 2019, but he was still a very solid, talent going through the college season last year. The biggest knocks that were going up not in his favor were the fact that he faced very little NFL caliber talent, and then he has the size to play outside, but he was mainly playing the slot, and people are concerned as to why that was, whether it was more so just like schematically they needed him in the slot or personnel wise, or it was the fact that he was just not really good outside of the slot. So that's something that remains to be seen. But again, going after team needs, I think it was a really good pick for them. Ellerson Smith, linebacker out of Northern Iowa in round number 4, pick number 116. This guy's massive, 6'6", 250 pounds, quick off the snap. He's long. He fights through size disadvantages, even when he's going up against some of those really big offensive linemen. He's one of those guys that's not just going to, lay down to anybody. He's fighting through every single play, and that's exactly what you want to see, especially from a bigger linebacker like that. You want to see that toughness. I guess one of the funny thing, I guess one of the biggest knocks against him was that his legs don't really fit his upper frame. His legs are a little bit thinner than some people would expect him to be for being so large. He was knocked down here and there, and the talent he faced could have made him look a little bit better than advertised just because of where he was playing. Some people were saying that the offensive linemen he was going up against were maybe not quite as good as some of the talent that are actually being drafted into the NFL. But overall, linebacker is one of the team needs I don't have listed on here because I didn't deem it as important, but was something that they did need to go after. I considered offensive line, edge, cornerback, and receiver probably a little bit higher up on that list, but linebacker was definitely a position they could work on, and I think that Ellerson Smith in the 4th round, a really good pick for them. Round number 6, at 196, they got Gary Brightwell, the running back out of Arizona. And then round number 6, pick 201, they got Rodarius Williams, cornerback out of Oklahoma State. These are their last 2 picks of the draft. Gary Brightwell, angry runner, big dude. He's 6'1", 218. He's explosive, not afraid to run somebody over, kind of brick wall style running back. He's going to run through somebody. He's a thumper. He has no real effect in the pass game is probably the biggest knock. A lot of running backs, or at least the elite ones, are becoming more and more effective in the receiving game, as well as being a strong runner. Somebody like Derrick Henry, who was kind of knocked for being not as big in the pass game early on in his career, has become more of a pass catcher. So that's kind of somebody you need to look at with big size. Obviously, Derrick Henry's like 6'6", he's like 6'4", like 240. But again, he is still a bigger running back. You definitely want to be a multifaceted player if you want to have any impact in the league, especially if you're playing behind somebody like Saquon Barkley. You have to be able to catch passes and be able to run the football and be a thumper. And then Rodarius Williams, this is a great tackler. Whenever you're picking a cornerback, especially late in the draft, you're looking for traits that they have that stick out, and he is a fantastic tackler. And when you're picking corners, a lot of corners get knocked for not being great form tacklers. This is obviously not the case in him. He only allowed 10 catches on 21 targets. He's a little bit more of a patient player. So those are some of the positives that I was reading on about him. One of the issues that came up a lot is he's not great in contested catches. So when it came time to go up for the football against a wide receiver, he lost a lot of those battles. And his last interception was in 2018. So not like the ball hawking playmaker you'd want to see. He's more of like a finesse guy that kind of capitalizes on his athleticism. But outside of that, that's everyone that they drafted. As far as my actual grade, again, they did a really good job targeting team needs. They went after a couple of cornerbacks. I really like the Aaron Robinson pick, Azeez Ojulari, and Kadarius Toney. Like their first 3 picks, just based off of like what I've seen and what I've read about them, home run hits. I think they're really, really good. And then like some of the later guys too, the Ellerson Smith pick, I think is a really good one. And the Rodarius Williams one, more of a project corner for them, but it does add depth. and you want good corners that can tackle. So you got one in that. I'm a big fan of the Rodarius Williams pick. That's a really good late round, kind of guy you're going to work on. He doesn't need to start right away. He can learn from some of the other corners that they have up there, the better elite talents. They have a Dory Jackson. So overall, final grade, and for you Giants fans, I think you're going to be a big fan of this pick. I'm going to slap them with a fat A. I think this was a really good, draft overall. Really good players that, the Azeez Ojulari, like I'm obsessed with that pick because I cannot believe they got him at pick number 50 in the NFL draft. But they got really good talent at really good places in this draft. They hit on their team needs. They went after what they needed to go after. And, man, and then like the Kadarius Toney pick, dude, like if he's not getting hurt, this is going to be such a good draft class for New York. And New York stock throughout the offseason has just been rising and rising and rising and rising. And the more I look at what they've been doing and, kind of what they needed based off of last year, their defense was really good. It was the offense that was struggling. And, they've brought in Kadarius Toney, Galladay. The Giants are looking like a legitimate threat to be the number one team in the NFC East. This is a team that, could very well be 11-6, maybe 12-5, something like that. Obviously, with the extended season now, 17 games instead of 16. This is a team that could be a legitimate threat. I'm really excited to see how they go. But yeah, I'm going to hit them with an A, man. Really big, big props going out to New York. And I think they did a phenomenal job in this year's draft. But with that, that's pretty much it for the show. Again, slow news week, not a ton going on. I'm not going to hold you guys up here and just chit chat about nothing and nonsense. I'm excited for obviously week 1. If you guys are actually looking at the ticker down below right now, you can see scrolling through the entire week 1 setup for the actual NFL season that we have coming up here. But if you have any comments, things you like, share, subscribe, let people know about the show. I mean, I'm doing this twice a week, Monday and Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. And then in between those shows, I'm posting and uploading things here and there, whether it's clips from the show or actual new content that I'm pre-recording and sending up for you guys. My goal is to just keep rolling through the off season, sharing all the important things with you guys, my opinions on things. And then when come that NFL season, when we're getting into the preseason and things start to really pick up, the content's only going to get better and better. I'm going to have football to actually talk with you guys about. I also follow the fan-controlled football league, stuff that's going on in college. If the XFL picks back up, I definitely want to follow that as well. This is supposed to be a football show for everything, but obviously the NFL is really the only thing that has anything going on right now, so it's all I really have to talk about. But without further ado, I will let you guys go. I appreciate you all for joining me today. Thank you all for watching. I'll catch you guys on Monday, same time, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Have a good rest of your Thursday, everybody.